You thought the Koopa worked alone?
You must have thought Robotnik worked alone, didn't you?
You thought Robotnik worked alone?
You thought Eggman word slapped himself. You thought Eggman worked alone.
You thought Eggman worked alone?
You thought Plankton worked alone? You thought Plankton worked alone? You thought Plankton worked alone? You thought Sheldon worked alone?
You thought the devil worked alone?
You thought the devil worked alone?
You thought the chicken worked alone, Peter? Thought the chicken worked alone, Peter?
You thought Monica worked alone?
¿Acaso pensaste que Rob trabajaba solo?
You thought Chrysalis worked alone?
You thought the Koopa worked alone? You thought the Koopa worked alone?
You thought Double D worked alone?
Realmente creíste que Mitch trabajaba solo.
You thought the Teddy worked alone?
Boris, what the fuck?
You thought Joey worked alone?
¿Pensabas que Gigante trabajaba solo? You thought Chrysalis worked alone?
You thought Eggman worked alone?
You thought the flower worked alone?
You thought Maltese worked alone? Wabby wobble.
You saw Ice King worked alone?
You thought the doctor worked alone?
You thought Team Rocket worked alone?
You thought Koopa worked alone? You thought the Koopa worked alone?
You thought Eggman worked alone?
You thought Extend worked alone?
You thought Mustache Girl worked alone?
You thought Kevin worked alone?
You thought Pizza Face worked alone? You thought Jacob worked alone?
¿Acaso pensaste que ellos trabajaban solos?
You thought Discord worked alone?
You thought the flower worked alone?
You thought the Koopa worked alone?
You thought Tabby worked alone?
You thought Danny Dearest worked alone?
You thought Diesel 10 worked alone?
You thought the Koopa worked alone?
You really thought Eggman worked alone?
You thought Plankton worked alone?
You thought Discord worked alone? Sonic, you thought Eggman worked alone?
You thought Mario worked alone?
You thought Henry worked alone?
¿Leno trabajaba solo?
You thought the cell worked alone?
You thought the doctor worked alone?
You thought the doctor worked alone?
¿Acaso pensaste que Plankton trabajaba solo?
You thought Eggman worked alone?
You thought Plankton worked alone?
You thought Guest worked alone?
You thought the enemy worked alone?
Did you think Captain worked alone?
You thought the Koopa worked alone?
worked alone.
You thought Sheldon worked alone.
You thought Plankton worked alone.
¿Pensaste que Plankton trabajaba solo?
You thought Diesel 10 worked alone?
You thought Wiley worked alone?
¿Creías que Vivi trabajaba sola?
You thought Superman worked alone?
You thought that Pharmatech worked alone?
You thought Scythe only worked with 2 morons?
You thought the Koopa worked alone?
You thought that the Mario Bros worked alone?
He's like the Giga Puppet Master and Bernie is just a little puppet that
You thought Eggman worked alone?
You thought Plankton worked alone?
Harry worked alone?
You thought that the Hedgehog worked alone?
You thought that Pizza Face worked alone.
Thought Koopa worked alone?
Aldo worked alone?
¿Creías que Chrysos trabajaba sola,
Did you really think that Eggman made those bots by himself?
¿Acaso pensabas que el robot trabajaba solo?
You thought that Eduardo worked alone?